What is going on, good people? I hope everyone is doing fantastic out there and you're excited about this crypto market. Zip back with you to discuss the latest and what's going on out here and give you the macro, not hype. Let's buckle up because we got some interesting things to talk about today. We're going to look at the markets real quick, and then we're going to talk about Meta and then the empire and the eyeing of crypto wallets for 3 billion users, as well as practical XRP use by a company, a pharmaceutical company. And then we're going to talk about Cardano, Charles Hoskinson, as well as the Midnight sidechain project and how that correlates to XRP. And then we're going to finish up and talk about the tax implications in crypto, as I absolutely want everyone to be prepared as we start thinking about what is going to happen as these markets explode, just in case you decide to sell. Again, it's that long-term thought, being prepared, having a plan, and I just want to provide as much of that content to you as possible. So please remember to hit that like button. Please subscribe if you haven't. And let's get into some of the news. Looking at the markets. So we see Bitcoin up at $103,000, looking very, very strong. XRP at about 241, which is exciting. But the whole market's been doing fairly well and obviously pumped up. Again, I'm looking at the end of this year, Q3, Q4, specifically by the beginning of Q4, for everything to be dramatic. Yes, I believe we're going to see some price increases as we get these tariffs all worked out, and we're going into May, June, July. However, I'm shooting for the last half of the year to be absolutely explosive as we look at the ETFs. You know, we'll have the SEC case behind us specifically for XRP if you are an XRP holder, and hopefully get that dang regulation through. Again, we know that the stablecoin Genius Act was blocked this week due over political theatrics, but they're going to push it back up hopefully before the end of May, and that thing is going to get approved. There's nothing they can do. They're not going to be able to stop this, and it'll happen. So we'll continue to watch that. Let's look at Bitcoin dominance and what's going on there. So we see currently Bitcoin dominance is high. We can see where it was. So generally what happens is when Bitcoin dominance starts to drop, that's when altcoins really take off. So just another practical tool to look at to see where we are at this place in this bull run. So very, very exciting. Now let's get into some of the news. This is really massive news, and I want to spend a little bit of time here because we want to think macro, big, and this is the kind of news that absolutely can shake up the entire cryptocurrency world. So according to Fortune, Facebook, or Meta now, at $1.5 trillion tech giant with over 3 billion users, is reportedly planning to launch crypto wallets and payment systems for all of its platforms. Yeah, you heard it right. 3 billion users soon could be using crypto on Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, all of their platforms out there. Now, we're talking about 3 billion monthly active users. That's nearly half of the world's population. We know how huge Zuckerberg's empire is there. That's not just a small project. I mean, this could be one of the biggest steps, again, towards what? Mainstreaming crypto adoption like we haven't seen before. Remember, this isn't just about payments. It's about onboarding folks, because we still are very, very small. I know we talk about this day in and day out because we were the lucky ones and we were invested early in many of these great crypto projects. So again, what is something like this going to do? One, mass adoption. Right now, you know, I think the estimates out there are what, few 100 million, 300 million or so crypto users worldwide we're talking about. Now that's a lot of folks and it sounds like it, but when you look at the world over, that is a small drop in the bucket compared to 3 billion users. I mean, even if it's just 10% of users that start using crypto wallets, that's a brand new 300 million folks coming into the environment and learning and being educated to understand what high utility coins like XRP, Cardano, XLM are, and getting integrated into these environments and bringing their money and their capital with that. This kind of scale could absolutely push crypto and the digital asset market to a new global standard. Again, it's all part of this transformation that is going on with regards to the financial infrastructure and getting this information out across the whole world. Two, it's infrastructure and trust. We know Meta, that's just not a social media company. It's a tech giant. If they roll out crypto wallets en masse, they're likely to make it seamless and very user-friendly, which is critical for people, who right now think crypto is too complicated. And to be honest, there are many facets of this environment that absolutely are hard and complicated for folks. So it's going to bring on new capability and new tech to facilitate the ease of getting into these markets. Whether for better or worse, Meta carries a lot of weight, and normies, as we'll call them, who have never heard about XRP, maybe not even heard about Bitcoin, many of them may feel a lot safer if they're being onboarded through a platform that they've been on for years and years. But exciting. And the third thing is the market impact, though. Again, a $1.5 trillion company entering the crypto space, we could see a surge in demand for all of these crypto products and digital assets that we already know and we are holding. And if they enable crypto payments for, say, e-commerce or the advertising, that's another use case that's driving real world utility. And that's what we want. And this is just one company. I promise you, if we're talking about Meta, there's going to be other companies like Google and Oracle and you name a company that are already evaluating this because they're not going to want to be left behind. So we're watching real world onboarding going on. Very, very exciting. Keep our eye on this and see what it brings to the market. Other news out here, XRP actually being used. So here's the deal. Wellgistics Health, which is a publicly traded company on the NASDAQ, they announced they're using a $50 million equity line of credit to pioneer XRP in two big ways. First, they're going to be holding XRP as a treasury reserve asset. Think of it like like what been talking about with Bitcoin coin that Michael Saylor does on the corporate balance sheets for MSTR. But this is with XRP. And secondly, they're going to be building a real-time payment system using XRP to settle transactions between pharmacies, suppliers, manufacturers across their network of over 6,000 independent pharmacies and 150 manufacturer contracts. Huge, absolute real-world implementation. Now, this means pharmacies can get paid instantly. Manufacturers can streamline rebates, and global vendor payouts become dirt cheap. Oh, and Brian Norton, the CEO, has converted $1.5 million worth of debt into over 300,000 shares at an IPO price, showing major confidence again of what is going on with this move. Now, this isn't hype. This is a real business betting on the use case that we already know and love for us that hold XRP. It's real world utility in action. So, practical application, Wellgistics is going to be using XRP to solve a real world problem in the pharmaceutical supply chain. Payments are slow and clunky. We talk about this all the time. The system is old and outdated, and that is why XRP and many of these other digital assets are going to modernize the system. Second, which is big with this, it's not in the fintech sector. It's a completely different sector that is now embracing XRP, unlike with Ripple that generally focuses on what? Banks and cross-border payments. Wellgistics is bringing XRP to healthcare, a massive $4 trillion industry in the US alone. Now, this shows and will prove the XRP versatility beyond finance. And if this company's doing it, other companies are going to see and start to understand how efficient this technology is. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, we own the backbone of the technology that is transforming the world. We own the software. We own the integration. We own the rails. Now, the last thing with this is it's institutional adoption without Ripple's direct involvement, from what we can tell. Here's where and why it's really interesting, because Ripple is not explicitly mentioned anywhere in this deal, which suggests what? Wellgistics is independently choosing XRP for its tech. I'd love to hear the background story on this and how the company, the CEO, found XRP and is incorporating this technology into his payment solutions. This is really huge because, again, it shows that XRP, the XRPL, and its infrastructure is mature enough for companies to adopt it on their own, and they don't have to utilize the Ripple payments environment to do that. It's sort of like picking, if you're looking for cloud computing, Amazon Web Services, it's a sign that XRP is becoming a standard for blockchain payments. Very, very exciting news here. Other stuff going on. Let's talk about ADA, XRP, Ripple, and as well as Bitcoin. Let's listen to this real quick, and then we're going to break this down of what Charles is talking about in this short interview that has been clipped out. And thanks to Stake with Pride that put this out on X.
Had Cardano be one of the first to do private stablecoin? Maybe, just maybe, people don't want to have a stablecoin where every time they buy something, it's forever tracked by everyone everywhere, and everybody can see it. Maybe, just maybe, you'd like to have that be privacy enabled, right? But if you have selective disclosure, you can still do a season freeze regime, and you can still do all the other things the regulators. But it's really cool, if we have that capability. Cardano is probably going to be one of the first ecosystems to do that. And when we look in the next 5 years, our big area of growth is likely going to come from XRP and from Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Because we can do things for them, and that's a win-win. And when you add that together, that TVL is going to be 4 times larger than Ethereum and Solana combined. And also just facilitating the real-world asset revolution. Because of Midnight, we have all that selective disclosure and private computation. That is the only platform you're really going to be able to run RWAs at scale. That's a $10 to $13 trillion opportunity over the next 5 to 10 years.
This is huge news, and it's huge if you understand the macro and where we're going. Hoskinson's betting that Cardano's privacy-focused sidechain, which I've talked about in the past in other videos, Midnight, if you haven't looked at this, go out and take a look at Midnight and what they're trying to do. But they're basically talking about keeping stablecoins on a private basis, private transactions. Think about sending money without exposing all of our wallet details, like currently we have as we're sending money. And now what was interesting about this is that David Schwartz chimed in saying, ZK proofs, which is what Midnight is built on. It's a cryptographic tech powering the Midnight sidechain, can make privacy stablecoins more practical and secure, offering security and decentralization close to a layer 1 blockchain. Now, he makes a note here and he's cautious. He's not convinced the use cases are here yet, But he suspects, and I suspect as well, that one day they will be, and this all comes after this relationship that Ripple and Charles has been having since November of 2024 when they started talking, and they geeked out over Midnight's potential to add this private smart contract capability to XRP. These two crypto titans are there's something clearly going on behind the scenes, and it's going to prove to be something big. Midnight's airdrop is planned for, millions of users across blockchains, including XRP. Okay, and they're going to distribute night and dust, which I've talked about previously, tokens to us as holders if you hold that, or if you hold Bitcoin. Bringing the communities together into what? Cardano's ecosystem. Plus, Hoskinson has also hinted at integrating Ripple's RLUSD stablecoin into Midnight, blending XRP's liquidity with Cardano's privacy tech on the sidechain Midnight. His caution about use cases, David's I'm speaking to, is suggesting he's just waiting for the real world demand. And that real world demand, in my opinion, is coming because it's going to be like banks and businesses who need private stablecoin payments, which we know as institutions start to onboard into crypto, there is definitely going to be a need for more privacy because corporations are not going to want everyone knowing their internal information and what they are doing inside of their corporations. So that is absolutely coming, and I think it's going to be exciting to see what this Midnight sidechain can do. And again, many of us, if you're into XRP, you will be part of that airdrop. So we'll keep an eye on this, and I'll make more information on it. I've been studying up on Midnight, and very, very interesting tech. And it just shows you that we're moving into an interoperable world, ladies and gentlemen. There will not just be one winner in this financial revolution that we see taking place right before our eyes. Now, let's switch gears a little bit, and let's just talk about taxes a little bit and crypto in general. Now, I've previously stated that my plan is not to sell all of my crypto. I think I still have it in here. Talked about it in the last video. If you haven't seen that, go back and you'll understand what I'm talking about. But my plan is to sell off certain percentages, laddered up, but I'm always going to maintain 50% of my bags. And there's a reason for that. And again, go back to the last video I put out, and there's even more content out there about what my thesis is. Again, none of this is tax accountant information or financial advice. I am neither of those. I'm just giving you my understanding and want you to be prepared if you're watching my content. Now, taxes are a huge consideration, and you have to understand your tax structure in this, especially if you're brand new getting into this environment. You want to have a very defined plan. So understand just your basis holding to begin with, okay? If you're holding for less than 1 year, that's looked at by the IRS as short term, which you're going to be taxed anywhere between 10 to 37%, depending on your income levels. That is huge. You don't want to lose 37% of your profit if you don't have to. Secondly, if you're holding it greater than a year, it's considered long term, and you'll be taxed anywhere from 0 to 20%, again, dependent on your salary level, where you are as an income holder. So just as an example, in 2025, if you're a single filer earning under $50,000, you could pay 0%. That is very important for you to know, because it's going to define how you exit in a laddered approach and how much profit you're able to keep. So again, just go out there and study up on what your federal, and I'm speaking to U.S. Folks out there, obviously. If you're in other countries, you need to still know what your tax requirements are in that country. Now, for us in the U.S., remember, this doesn't include your state taxes. So if you're out in like California or somewhere like that, you could be in for another, 10 to 15, 20% on top of what the federal is. So just be very, very aware of where you're structured and be prepared. That's what the point of this content is about. I want you to be prepared and understand the macro view of how to keep as much profit as possible. Okay. This is all free. Again, this is just my advice. I'm not a financial planner and I'm not a tax consultant, but I've been through this. And the second thing we're going to talk about is you have to track your crypto, because if you don't track your crypto transactions, it's going to be a mess for you. Okay. I'm giving you, I've been through this, and it becomes a big problem. You got to track every buy, sell, or trade needs to be reported and tracked. And if you're active on multiple exchanges, say like Coinbase, Binance, Uphold, BitTrue, whatever, Caleb and Brown, things can get very messy, very, very fast. Trust me, you just don't want to be scrambling at tax time. So now's the time to think through all this and try a couple of the technologies out there. There's software. I like to use ZenLedger, but there's Coinly. There's other ones out there that will track your wallets for you, fairly easily. And if they don't have a tie-in to the exchange to where you can API to tie directly into that exchange, you can download your information and then upload it to ZenLedger to give you an exact understanding of when you bought it, where you are, and to understand your basis of the holding, and so you can make wiser decisions. Now, lastly, or next, talk about how we lower taxes. And again, I talked about this previously as well, but you can utilize and implement tax loss harvesting. Okay, so what is that? This is where you basically sell crypto that's down in value to lock in a loss, and then use that loss to offset your gains. Okay, this is very common even in the traditional TradFi environment. We do this, and it's just a way to decrease, again, your taxes. So an example, just say you made $7,000 on XRP, but you lost $5,000 on pick another coin, some meme coin or something like that. Maybe you can sell the loser, and your taxable gain drops to just $2,000 at that point. That is huge. So the more you understand about the tax infrastructure and how it can hurt your profits, the better off you're going to be. Other ways to lower taxes, trusts. Get out there and study what a charitable remainder trust is. Okay. It's basically a way for you to benefit from a tax perspective, but also help with charity to a charitable organization that you want to pay it forward to. But accountants are very smart with this. This is something just for you to educate yourself with, and then look bigger. Look at spendthrift trusts, and setting all of your environment up in a trust. This is generational wealth that we're talking about, and how to make sure that taxes are deferred. Again, not an expert in it by any means, but I listen to other folks that are experts. And that's what all this is about. It's about knowledge and sharing and building this community so we're all established for success. And lastly, I talk about it several times, infinite banking. As I'm exiting my long term, at a laddered approach, I'm going to take some of that and I'm going to stuff it back into my insurance policies, which are then going to compound forever at 4 to 7% annually. And I'm taking loans from that, which is what? Tax tax-free. And then the insurance is also tax-free generationally, So again, just wanted to spend a little bit of time here. I'm going to try to do this after each video, just break down little pieces and components and things that I have struggled with and ran into problems with, so you can take this knowledge and not struggle. Again, knowledge is power. And please pass this information on, because I can promise you, you're not the only one struggling with it, or maybe you've never even thought about it. You're just thinking about price go up and I want to sell. Well, at that point, it's too late. If you can think about this before you sell and establish an environment that prepares you to pay less taxes and prepares you for, to pass on generational wealth, now's the time to do that before the markets go crazy and the psychology of the market starts to affect your mind. We have a lot of new folks that are coming and being onboarded into this digital asset environment, and they've never been through a run, and especially a run like we're getting ready to have with everything that is lining up. Again, we're getting ready to go into some exciting times, and the profits are going to be coming, but you have to be prepared mentally and do your research now. This is just a little bit to just help you, start thinking about that. But again, I hope you enjoyed all this content today. Please put a comment down there. Tell me what you're excited about. Are you excited about XRP? You excited about the use of XRP, XLM, Hedera, Flare? What's going on there? We've been dropping content on that, and there's more coming on that as well. But this is the most exciting time to be alive, and big caution, just be prepared. Secondly, stay away from the scammers. They're coming out in force. Watch them in the comments of these videos. Don't interact with them. I try to delete those comments as fast as they're populated, and I also try to respond to any of your questions or anything like that. But with that, please have a fantastic rest of your day wherever you are. And until next time, Zip is out.